I'm a general pediatrician from UAB, and for the past year, I've served as the AAP chapter champion for the Alabama EDDI program, so the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention program. So in that role, I have gotten to work with Mary Ellen Whigham. And you've already met with Mary Ellen today in her role as the newborn hearing screening supervisor for Alabama. And through that program, she supervises the screening of 60,000 infants in Alabama each year. There were 93 infants identified with hearing deficits in 2015 and 107 in 2016. And she has a challenge because the hearing screens are not done at the state lab. They're done by the different hospitals and providers in the community, and sometimes she needs to keep us straight on what we need to do and make sure that the follow-through is, happens the way it's supposed to. But this afternoon, we're going to meet her in a different role. She is also the parent of a child with a hearing deficit. And so she's going to share her experience as a mom and share insights that can guide us as providers in working with children with hearing deficits.
So I get to bring a little different perspective to this as a mother of a child. So I get to take off my ADP badge now, ADPH, and be a mom. My story began 21 years ago when my youngest son was born. And I'm kind of like the mom with 5 kids, the Garretts. This was my 3rd baby. It was all cool. I went to the doctor at my 7-month checkup, 8-month checkup, and I had a breech baby. Doctor goes, this one's breech too. The first one we had no clue till we got to the hospital, because everything was cool. And he says, let's put him in the right position, And I said, okay, fine, great, I'm a nurse. I didn't know. And I didn't get explained what could happen. And I was an emergency room nurse during that time period, so I went to work the next day. By the time I got home, I was in labor, having contractions. We're 4 weeks early, I hadn't had a premature baby before, I didn't know where we were at or what was going on. And so I called my mom. I said, I don't feel good. Come stay with us tonight. Because, I had 2 other small kids to take care of. So my mom and dad drove the 45-minute drive into where I lived. And my mom got there and she looked at me and she said, we're going to the hospital now. We're not going to wait any longer. And I'm like, I don't like the OBGYN that's on. So she's like, I don't care whether you like him or not, we're going. Because she said, my color wasn't right, this, how moms are. So we went, and I was very frustrated when I got there because the nurses are like, oh, well, you might be in labor, you're not this, you're not that. Well, within the hour of being there, my water broke. So I wasn't going home like I had hoped. So we progressed, and Caleb was born. Caleb was 6'9", which was foreign to me because my other children, were almost 8 pounds, good, healthy, children. In the meantime, though, I didn't hear Caleb crying. I didn't know. I was crying because nobody would tell me what was wrong with my baby. Caleb's Apgar was 3'4" at birth, which was very scary for me because as a nurse I knew what that meant. But my doctor wasn't worried about my baby. That scared me even more. So I'm sitting there, my husband was designated coach because I have an awesome husband, and he is like the best coach in the world. He's like, focus, let's get this, process over with. And my mom is sitting over there. She was delegated as baby because that was natural delivery. I'm one of these nurses who, I might give an epidural, but I'm not going to have one myself, okay? Because I know that looks too bad. So I wasn't going to do it, and so then, my doctor is, really impatient. And bless his heart, he retired within the year after my delivery, so that tells you his age and how he was, and he was from the old school. So he was very upset with me that I wouldn't do natural delivery on a breech baby. I looked at him, I said, I've had one before. What's the problem? Then I found out, when Caleb starts decelerating, that my nurse has been a nurse for 6 months. Okay, so, as a nurse, all these nightmare things are going through your head, and those of you who are nurses and healthcare professionals can understand that and everything. You want to keep your confidence in your team, right? And so I was trying my best. I was being a good trooper. But then when my baby didn't cry, that was very scary. I'd even had my mom, while I was in labor, I made my mom go out in the hallway and call my pediatrician, who I worked with on a regular basis in the emergency room, and said, Dr. B, Mary Ellen says get to the hospital. There's something wrong with the baby. And she's like, Mama, you know I can't do that. You know, we have protocols. So she was very gracious. You know, she kept calling the hospital, checking on us and everything. And so about 1 a.m., Caleb made his arrival, and his Apgar was not good. And I'm sitting there, well, then I have some complications, and I have to go to surgery immediately. So we went to surgery. My husband waited for us in our room because, you know, I was a room in birth, but unfortunately had to move out to the delivery rooms and stuff. And in that process and stuff, my mom, she waited a long time before she told me, but she was so concerned because Caleb was so blue and wasn't breathing. And so fortunately, I had a NICU nurse who walked around the corner and came into the delivery room and got Caleb breathing adequately enough that he was no longer blue. And so we just went on in a normal life. He was our normal baby, but he was my quiet baby. I didn't think anything about it. My pediatrician was like, it's okay, he's got little mama. Because my daughter was just barely 13 months older than him. So pretty good for a woman, doctors told, at age 13, told her parents never have kids. So there's always miracles. So, you know, and Caleb was our surprise. We just didn't have a clue, you know, that was going to be possible. But he's been the most awesome surprise in that we did not discover, because in 1996 there was no newborn hearing screening program. Babies were not universally screened. So we had chronic ear infections. We had tubes by 6 months. We stayed sick all the time. We had our tonsils and adenoids out at age 4 to go along with the tubes and stuff. So we progressed. We moved 2 hours away from where we had been living almost all of our lives. So we thought transition was a problem. You know, Caleb started struggling in K-5 and first grade, and repeated first grade just because we thought that he was the baby and he was just struggling. So then second grade, we get there and the teacher says, this kid's got to go on ADHD medicine. Okay? She's just like, can't handle it, can't do it. I said, I don't think Caleb has ADHD. You know, I'm a nurse. Okay? I'm cool. I can, you know, figure out these processes. And I just didn't think she knew what she was talking about. So I said, okay, well, you know, ADHD symptoms and hearing loss symptoms can sometimes mimic things, you know, because the children get in their own little world, which Caleb had been in his own little world forever. He was the best baby in the world. Leanne would come in there and she'd say, the baby's sleeping. When's he going to wake up? And like when he decides to, you know, play in his playpen for hours, not bother anybody. So by now the teachers are doing ADHD medicine, you know, as a necessity for him to get through school. So we went to Dr. Knox here in Montgomery and discovered that Caleb had a chronic hearing loss, mild to moderate, bilaterally. So it was like, okay, you know, I was okay with that. But then he sent us to CRS. CRS is like, okay, we need our hearing aids, which Dr. Knox had prepared us and stuff. So we got our hearing aids, we did good, went to school and educated because he was in a small private school, had 18 kids in his class until he got to his junior year and his class blossomed. So those 18 kids were great. We explained to them how hearing aids work, you know, things. Explained to teachers that Caleb needed to sit on the front row every day, not, you know, where he can see lips and make sure that he knows the teacher's talking to him and stuff. And through all of that, we just went through a series of things. It was a struggle. Teachers don't understand hearing loss. They don't get it. They think the child just needs to sit there and behave and do. 4th grade, I had teachers call me in, you know, because every year you go to school, the beginning of school, you explain to them what needs to happen, what needs to do. They may or may not follow through, depending on their day. 4th grade, the teachers called us in for a meeting with the principal. They said, I think your child is suicidal. Well, I hit the floor then. I mean, I was like, suicidal? My child? My child's not suicidal. So we went back to Dr. Knox. We went through some testing and everything. And at that point, they decided that Caleb had some, maybe some reading disabilities and issues and stuff, but not really, you know, because it's basically spelling. So Dr. Knox looked at me and he says, okay, Mama, let's discuss this. He said, everything we use in today's society has spell check. So choose your battle. Is spelling a big deal? Well, I thought the whole way home and prayed, and I thought, geez, really, he's right. What's the big deal? So we rocked along school. Poor Caleb had to go to summer school every year. Okay, that was just a given. We knew it was happening, and stuff. But the most awesome part was the children who surrounded him. Caleb loved football, baseball, sports, both my boys. From the day they got there, ball was their life. So Caleb played football. Of course, you can't play football in your hearing aids. So Caleb had this little boy, bless his heart, he was like the super giant of the class. He was probably already pushing 6 foot in 3rd and 4th grade. And here's little Caleb, as you can see. He was kind of about the size of the picture there with the group, with his siblings and his grandfather. And this little boy, if Caleb didn't hear the call played, even though we told the coaches, if you're going to change the play or Caleb doesn't know it or something, you got to make sure he hears you. Well, you got all the background noise at a football game. There's no way a hearing impaired child is going to hear anything. So the little boy just would pick Caleb up if he ended in the wrong position, and he'd just pick him up by the shoulder pads and move him where he needed to be. So that was our life till Caleb got the grasp of adjusting for football. In 3rd grade, Caleb was involved in a car accident with my father, and my father was ejected and Caleb was trapped. So we went through that. My mother has not a clue how Caleb got out of the car. We just know that God got him out because the car was turned upside down on Caleb's side. So her greatest fear was that he was trapped underneath. So Caleb got out. She said she was trying to tend to my dad because he was ejected till the ambulance could get there and stuff. And of course, we live in a rural area, so there's no cell phone service. She's stuck till a passerby comes by. And Caleb says at that point in time, he heard something pop in his ears. So we went back to Dr. Knox and we got permanent PE titanium tubes as our amplification treatment. At that time, Dr. Knox pulled out rocks that were that big out of his ear where calcification had built up over the years and stuff from the previous tubes. So we went back to using the PEs as our amplification and everything, which worked really great. We got good opening of the eustachian tube, and that helped Caleb. Caleb wore the titanium tubes until his junior year, which was very unusual for a child, and he did good. So now we have grown up, and we have, at that visit, determined that Caleb has a very minute hearing loss at certain dBs and stuff, and he's accomplished a lot, but we also learned along the way in junior high school that Caleb had a permanent reading disability. And school is a struggle for children who have hearing loss. They require a lot of effort because they were talking earlier about the distortions of hearing and stuff, and boy, I can only tell you what the word mitochondria looked like when we tried to study for our science test after he took his notes. Because dinosaur and mitochondria, well, I couldn't even figure them out. I asked him, and he's like, well, that's so-and-so. I'm like, okay. So we struggled, and it's a big thing. People do not realize in our society, I've learned being in the Eddie position for the last year, they don't understand the impact of hearing loss. There are a lot of children out there who have hearing loss. We show that by our data that we gather every day for newborn screening. I wished I had had the benefit of newborn hearing screening. So you that do that job, it is a relief to know that you're out there, because we could have parents walking in my shoes of not being able to have treatment care other than your providers and stuff. So it is just unreal to me to see the difference of how going into newborn screening hearing and having those services, if Caleb had been able to be the beneficiary of early intervention services, then we wouldn't probably have the permanent reading disability and learning. I'm very proud to say that Caleb finished his last junior college course last week. He is a graduate of an associate's degree in science and has carried a full-time job all going through school, and has been very, very successful, and not quite sure what he wants to do, but he'll continue with his pest control job for now and everything. But he said school is not a further option for him. I'm stopping there, Mom. And that's okay, because when the conference came up and Suretia asked, we thought with Caleb being 21, maybe he might be interested in being the speaker. And I really talked hard. And he looked at me while we were traveling one day and discussing the subject. He said, Mom, I don't ever consider myself as ever having a hearing problem. So that success to me goes back to all the stories that we've heard, is that if our children, I really loved your daughters, because that's the attitude. They feel, as long as we make them feel successful, we've accomplished what we need to accomplish. Newborn screening accomplishes that every day through all of y'all and through the parents and the families and stuff. And I'm so thankful for my job position, because, and many of you hear me, if I have to call you, I'll say, this is the reason we do this, because I don't want any family to ever walk in the walk that we had, because it's hard enough, because your children, they just see things so different. They experience different things, having people who don't understand our diseases, who don't know what we're going through. It's hard to put themselves in that walk. And so they sometimes make it a little more difficult for us. And so, by everybody becoming educated and learning and coming to the conferences and knowing, that's how we can do that and follow the process of, each one teach one. And so that's what we do, is each one of us every day try to teach and learn and do. And the better we do that, then all of our children have a better life. So thank y'all.